Hello everyone, this is Green Rush Revolution. We're here at the Cannabis Conference 2022 in Las Vegas at Paris Casino and Hotel. And I'm here with Jesse Channon from Columbia Care. How you doing, Jesse?
Good to see you, man.
Awesome, Thanks for coming up.
Of course.
So tell us about what you do for Columbia Care.
Oh boy, so Chief Growth Officer, don't grow the plants. That was, the first 6 months, I think I was the first Chief Growth Officer in the space.
Right.
So I got solicited for lighting and racking systems. And so I focus on our marketing, branding, retail experience on one side of the house, and then I also work with our technology and innovation teams on the other side.
Awesome, must be a big job.
It's a lot of fun.
You guys got what, 99 dispensaries across the country and multiple other vertically integrated operations. Like, tell us about the expansion that's happening here. It must be a lot.
No, it's incredible. It will end the year right at about 100 dispensaries, around 35 cultivation and manufacturing facilities across the country, so vertically integrated in pretty much every market that we operate. It's been a wild ride. I mean, we introduced the rebrand of cannabis for retail experience, and that's been sort of sweeping across the country. And in the last probably 18 to 24 months, we've introduced about a handful of new product brands as well, across all SKUs, everything from flower to concentrates. We launched Tyson with that team as a cultivation manufacturing partner, which has been a wild ride, incredible to watch the growth of that brand. So yeah, I mean, it's been busy, and then obviously the Cresco news is sort of the big thing that everybody's talking about.
Right, that's a big one. I would love to speak with you about. But going into a little bit about your background, it sounds like you come from really work with the major corporations around the world. But you also created some kind of tool called Forage. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so my background has absolutely nothing to do with CPG from like a classic point of view. I started early on in technology in the startup space for social media, built a couple of companies that ultimately landed in New York City on Madison Avenue doing ad tech, spent the better part of a decade building companies there. And so I got this incredible exposure to working with world-class engineering and product teams, as well as these incredible marketers across entertainment and CPG and quick serve restaurants, and just this amazing sort of ability to just sit in rooms and learn, right? Like on the job. And so through that process, really sort of got a passion for finding ways to leverage technology to create innovative solutions for where we saw problems. When I started with Columbia Care, we were very medically focused, white lab coat sort of reputation, right? We knew that we had to rebrand and move into serving all the communities, recreational as well as medical. And I just realized that there wasn't really a fun sort of lightweight tool to help people find the right products. I mean, as soon as I started working in the space, people would ask me, they'd be like, well, what do you think I should try? And I'd be like, I don't know. Like, what are you trying to do, right?
Yeah, totally.
And so what we did is, we basically just went around the country, spent a bunch of time with our associates, sort of our bud tenders and sales associates, by far the best sort of knowledge pool in the company, right? And I would sit and I would listen in the dispensaries to the questions that people were asking, like what's the most common thing? And the most common question was, well, how do you want to feel today? And so we built a tool that asks a handful of contextual questions. It's super lightweight. You go to forage.io, it's mobile optimized. You go through the experience, you sort of say, this is what this is how I'm trying to feel. This is the things I'm comfortable with. These are the sort of things that I'm hoping to use it for, the settings, right? And it starts spitting out results and recommending products. And the reception was amazing. It's now embedded in our new loyalty app that we just launched, which is the fastest growing mobile app in the industry right now. Loyalty app, I think it was ranked in the top 15 on Apple last week. So yeah, man, it's been a ton of fun. But it's in all of our brick and mortars that are cannabis as well, so you can go in and actually interact with the tool on all of the interactive touchscreens throughout the space. So
and it also helps just folks understand like what they're consuming, what's best for them, because everybody titrates differently, right? So what works for you, what works for me, totally different, right? So I would imagine that's really helping folks a great deal, which is being able to for product selection as well as bud tenders.
And I think when we look at next phase of sort of features that we would invest in, a lot of it has to do with that feedback loop, digital diary, in order to be able to sort of have that consumer experience where you're like, I didn't love that, or I absolutely love this, and I'd love to try other things that are like this. So as tools in our space continue to evolve, I think to your point, it is an incredibly personalized experience, more so, I think, than, if we all go drink tequila tonight, we all know what's going to happen, right? Like, so there's definitely a little bit of a different feel, to our space. And I think it's incredibly important that people really sort of test and iterate and find out what integrates into their life most effectively.
100%, man, especially medical patients.
No No question.
They're, especially folks like seniors or people that are new to it, they may have an adverse reaction to something. And, I was just speaking with someone out at the conference earlier, about like just training for retail dispensary bud tenders or people that are serving these folks. Like they really need that training. So I think it sounds like a tool that can almost help both your staff as well as the person that's actually consuming the product.
It does. When we launched it, we thought that it was going to be we thought the majority of sessions would happen individually, and they don't. The vast majority of sessions are collaborative, with store associates actually using the tool to guide the conversation so almost collaborate with the patients or the customers and use the tool together. And then when you sit back and you watch how they use it, the recommendations will come up and the bud tender will look at them and be like, oh yeah, okay, come on, let's go over this way. And so then they take them over and they talk about not only that product that was recommended, but all the other things that may be a fit as well. And I think it just creates a less intimidating experience. Dispensaries are really intimidating, right? Like the way that we had to build them because of regulations and the classical experience, it can be a little bit embarrassing if you've never been in one before. It's like you sort of get forced to the front, and then you're like, okay, now I'm out of line. I'm supposed to know what I want, and there's people behind you that are like, and you're like, I have no idea. So you just fall back on whatever the guy or woman in front of you ordered, or what you overheard somewhere, or I recognize that I used to smoke that in college. I'll take that, right?
Which may make you go home and get paranoid, or may make you 100%. Sleep, or maybe
100%. It's not the best solution. So I think ourselves and a lot of other operators, if you look around over the last few years, have built beautiful retail experiences, right? That's not something that's exclusive to Columbia Care with the cannabis format. I think you're seeing a lot of operators building really welcoming, well-designed retail experiences focused on education, so that we don't forget the original communities that we also served, which is medical and people that are leveraging it not just for fun and recreational, but to ultimately help with things in their life.
So speaking of which, drilling down not from just a retail experience and moving into, let's just say, formulations or even strains, right? Focusing on that intellectual property and that research and development. Is that something Columbia Care is doing in terms of understanding like how certain cannabinoids work with medical patients in that capacity?
Absolutely. So, when I joined Columbia Care, the thing that was really cool was to see the commitment on sort of that research and development, working with partners like, I think they were doing stuff with Montefiore and Columbia and Einstein and all of these incredible, sort of hospital and research and development systems. Our chief scientific officer, Dr. Rosemary Mazanet, comes from an incredible background, clinical oncologist, way smarter than me, right? And so you sit and you watch the work that they do and the things that they're focused on, and you feel very good about the future of the industry, not just for people like myself that are trying to build fun brands and really lean in and understand some of the things at like a genetic level and making sure that we're merchandising and planting cultivation facilities in the right way. But there's also this huge commitment on the other side, not only within Columbia Care but broadly as an industry, to a lot of really smart people that are trying to make sure that as we continue into a future where medical will be a huge use case, that's done in a really responsible, really accurate way. And I think that's incredibly important.
It's very, very important. This is truly a therapeutic medicine. It always has been.
No question.
If not a resource in many different ways. And and there's a lot of discoveries, right? So it's really interesting to see that. How can we replace all these terrible medicines with this beautiful medicine here? Right?
No, I'm not going to make a comment. They're terrible. But I think when you look at the emergence of our industry, when you look at what our partners across the aisle in things like psilocybin and a number of other sort of emerging space, it's an incredibly exciting time to be a consumer and to be a patient and really feel like in the not so distant future you're going to have a much broader sort of selection of holistic and natural, sort of medications or treatments that you can make the choice to integrate into your life, as opposed to being prescribed things that you may know deep down inside, like this is, I got nowhere else to go, but this doesn't feel right. This is not a good thing. So.
Right. Well, that's awesome, man. Let's move from science back to branding again.
Come on.
So you guys got like 777 brands that just launched in Pennsylvania and a few other things. Tell us something about the brand campaign.
Wow. Look, total transparency. I had never built a brand before, right? I get to Columbia Care, it's like, we need brands. It's like, okay. So we started, I feel like we had the advantage of building them late So there was a lot of things that had already been done, these beautiful brands and architectures coming out of places like California and Colorado, that we really got to gather a lot of insight off of and say, okay, let's be very thoughtful about the way that we want to create brands. For us, brands were all about having sort of very realistic brackets of brand standards. So whether it's testing or terpene profiles or hand trimmed or whatever it may be, right? Like putting together these very realistic architectures that we could spread across the country. I did not like the idea. I think I caught a lot of praise from some people, some flack from others. One of my first interviews that I did in the space, I talked about there's no McDonald's of cannabis, and that's okay, right? And what I was trying to say is, if you're a consumer of the product, you know that just taking like Maui Wowie and planting it in an indoor facility in New Jersey is not going to be the same experience as
right.
Like there's a lot that goes into this, much more like grapes and wine than it is like alcohol, right? Like brewing beer. And so our commitment wanted to be around lifestyle, around certain things that were sort of more appealing to different consumers. And so we did a lot of sort of paneling and interviewing, and that's how we landed on things like Seed and Strain versus Classics versus 777, for example. Those 3 flower brands, right? They all test a little bit differently. They represent different things. If you walk in and you see Seed and Strain, it's going to be a really sort of almost crafty, terpy, profile of that flower. 777 is like night. I mean, that's like ultra premium testers. And then Classics is just like a really fun, good everyday brand that's like, I just want really good, affordable weed, right? Like that's what Classics was meant for. And so we really tried to stick to that. And then we just filled in the gaps, right? I mean, like Amber, which is one of our concentrate brands, I'll never forget. We were sitting in the office, and one of the guys out in California, Chris Raz, one of our leaders, was like, I need a brand for this live resin cart. And he sent me a picture of the cart, and I looked at the color of it, and I was like, what was that thing that the mosquito in Jurassic Park was? My buddy Josh was like, Amber, and I was like, let's call it Amber, right? That's literally how the brand came out. I was like, it looks just like it. So I think, we're launching a new brand, Hetty, which just dropped, so that's a new edibles brand that's coming out. All of them are meant to have very specific sort of outcomes or focuses with regards to the product consistency, not necessarily strain specific, trying to like over-engineer, because I just don't think it works. I don't think consumers really are that interested in it. So.
No, I agree with that too as well. I mean, you see it across the consensus of the industry. It's really like, you can see that absolutely. They're really attached to certain types of brands, right? And and if it's easier, you could say it easier, then it's even better for you, right? So from a marketing perspective, from a visual perspective, all that and then some. So that's fantastic. How many total brands do you guys think you have though?
Oh man, I literally, as I was saying this, I was like, he's going to ask me that. So it's 3 core flower brands plus Tyson. So we basically represent 4 national flower brands across the architecture in the country. We have some pockets of individual regional brands, either through acquisition or a number of things that have happened right in buying the green solution. G-Leaf, Project Cannabis, all of those operators have their own house brands. So what we've done is we've tried to bring them together, but also phase out some of the brands that we didn't feel like we're going to make it across the national. So there's really 3 core flower plus Tyson is sort of the 4 big flower brands across the country. And then those operator brands, so G-Leaf, TGS, Project Cannabis, THC, SD, a number of those. We've got Amber is one of the big concentrate brands for sure. Hetty is now the new hero sort of edible brand. And then Press is our sort of hero ingestible brand, which is hard pressed tablets and things like that.
Awesome, man. Well, that's a lot of great selection.
Thanks, man.
Right?
We hope so. I mean, if people vote with their wallets. So we nothing's too precious. We had a brand called Plant Sugar that was one of our first edible brands. People were buying it, but one of the data fallacies in cannabis, if it's there, they'll buy it, right? So if you really ask people, they're like, meh, the brand's okay, rebrand. Try Hetty, try different positions.
Try different ones.
See if it moves different. So
try different ones. Well, awesome. Well, okay, so coming back to the elephant in the room, Cresco. Columbia Care. I mean, what are we gonna do? What's happening?
I mean, unbelievable. Like it's incredible sometimes, the universe, right? You look at the 2 businesses, right? Obviously I'm biased, like I'll just be the first to say it, I'm biased, right? But you look at the 2 businesses and it's like, wow, this is actually pretty interesting, the combination. You've got Cresco is biggest and best wholesaler, incredible technology and data practice, really good scaled, efficient cultivation and manufacturing, good margin profile, just great leadership team, all of these things, right? Columbia Care, massive retail footprint, 17 states represented, vertically integrated across, so there's going to be some overlap, but great opportunity for divestitures and non-dilutive cash into the business, right? All the growth states that you want to be in right now, Columbia Care's got licenses in. So Virginia, New Jersey, New York, right? Go look at Pennsylvania, Ohio, they're going to flip. Like you look across the country and you say, wow, okay, now you've got sort of these perfected licenses. I think we represent 10 out of the 10 expected biggest cannabis markets in the country in 2025. We now have sort of coverage in all of them, right? Colorado, California. So you look at that map and you say, wow, great map. Now scaled cultivation, incredible wholesale, great technology backing it. There's just so many good fits there. That I think both companies spoke to it on the last earnings call. The divestiture process, everything there is on track, and I think we're moving towards the end of year-ish timeline that everybody's been talking about. I think everybody's still full steam ahead, and the companies are excited. I mean, we've been working on integration for months, and I think there's a ton of excitement to get these things together and create. Day one after it closes, I think it's the largest and most meaningful cannabis company in the world. So.
It sounds to me that's going to be exactly that. And what do you think the total estimated valuation of the company will be at that time?
I hope it's like, what, $1 trillion? How do numbers work? Did I break it? Right? No, I don't. Look, people who look into crystal balls eat glass, right? So I'm not going to take a guess on what it is. I think there's been a lot of really interesting research published on looking at the deal at face value and ultimately where this thing's going to close at, what it looks like from a margin and revenue profile moving into 23, 24, and then re-rating it. I think it's an incredibly attractive combination. I'm going to say conservatively it should be like 2x the size of Anheuser-Busch. So we'll see. I think it should be somewhere right around
there. Phenomenal.
I'm
That's
kidding.
Absolutely
phenomenal. Don't invest based on
that. So just a final statement is strategy, right? Future strategy, let's say. Cresco or not, let's say. What do you think the future strategy of Columbia Care is?
Well, it's Cresco. I mean, I'm incredibly confident that it is. This is going to get done on time as expected. I think that strategy then becomes one of really leveraging leading from the front. I mean, you're talking about 150 dispensaries plus at that point. Once you take into account the divestitures and everything, whatever it ends up at, 40 some odd cultivation manufacturing facilities, massive scale across the country in indoor and outdoor grows. I think what you do is you have a great opportunity to pick from an incredible talent pool of 5,000 combined employees, an incredible brand portfolio, an incredible facility portfolio. You just sort of get to look at that and say, best, brightest of everything is now front and center in the industry, and we go, right? I mean, it's 100 miles an hour forward. So I think that's the opportunity.
Right, and were you thinking about doing any other countries?
I think that international is interesting. I'm probably not the right person to ask about it. There's people at the company, at each company, I think, to focus on this. Nick, our CEO and co-founder, spoke about this in the last earnings call. We were early in Europe, I think among the earliest, and operated in the UK and Germany. I think there's a lot of excitement around Europe as an opportunity.
Yes.
And I think that it's probably 5 years plus behind the opportunity in the US. I mean, I think if you look at the totality of the expected sort of opportunity in Europe in 23-24 is probably a little bit smaller than New York, right? So if you are trying to deploy capital the most efficient way that you can, and you're really trying to focus on the opportunities for most explosive growth, you got New York, New Jersey, Virginia. I mean, they're lining up, and we are the scaled provider in all three of those markets. Lean in, right? So I think that there are going to be opportunities in Europe. I don't think we're going to be late. I think there's still plenty of time to figure out what that's going to look like.
Sure.
But there are massive markets that need to be focused on and served here, and so I think there's a lot of focus there.
Right on. Well, Jesse, thank you so much for being on the show.
It's a pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
Revolution, Columbia Care, Jesse here. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, man.
All right, man.
That was great.
Yeah. So much fun.